Hi and welcome to an introductory ZBrush DVD. This introductory video will just be about 20-25 minutes long, and it'll take you through a very quick snapshot of what ZBrush is capable of by showing you how to model a head. We're just going to do like a fantasy ogre type head using ZSpheres and converting the ZSpheres into a polygon mesh, an adaptive skin polygon mesh, and then we're just going to add a little bit of texture to it. In the future there'll be DVDs available or videos available from Curve Studios that go through all the basics of ZBrush, explain in more detail the tools and some of the tools that I'm going to be using today. And without further ado, I'll go straight into using the program. So with ZBrush 2 we have these panels across the top, the drop downs, and down the side here as well we have a number of pre-configured panels. You can configure it however you like. ZBrush 2 is very configurable. I've got it set up in this way because it's the way I work, and gives me access down the side here to virtually all the modeling tools that you could want. Keep that closed for the time being. Go back up to Tools at the top here and choose a ZSphere tool. We're going to draw that out into the canvas and hit keyboard T, which makes the model editable. And then we need to go to Transform and X to give us symmetry across the X-axis. And doesn't look like that worked then, so we'll go back and make sure that's selected. You can see that that now gives us a form of symmetry. And we're going to add more ZSpheres. If you bring the cursor together at the bottom like so, you'll see a green snap there, and we just draw that. That means that's dead center down the X-axis. Do the same at the top, draw another ZSphere, and we'll do the same at the back and draw another. And that's giving us a basic shape that we'll be able to convert into polygons. To have a quick look at that, we hit keyboard A. And that tells us roughly what our mesh is going to look like. Too much of a crease here, and the way we sort that out is come over to our tool panel and go down to adaptive skin down here. We've already got preview selected because that was the keyboard A, as you can see, so that's in the preview mode. We can go along here and there's quite a few settings across the bottom. We want minimal skin to child. I'll tighten that up there, and you can see already that's sorted that crease out. And we're actually going to need intersection resolution a little bit higher than it is. We'll take that up to 30, and we're going to use membrane curvature up to about 30 as well. It gives you a bit of a membrane to work with, helps you work with the model. Now if we go back to ZSpheres, we want a little bit more geometry than that to work with, so we're going to add something that will become the ears at the side here, as you can see, with symmetry. A quick check just to see. It doesn't look like it's done a good job with the polygons there, so we'll go back and we're going to move that out just to make sure that that cleans up nicely. You see with ZSpheres you can either move the ZSphere itself or the intersection, the bridge between it. Let's have a look at that, and that's cleaned that up nicely. Always remember at this stage you're just looking for good clean polygons in the right place, really. Right place for what you want to do for your model. Obviously you can use references for what you want. I'm trying to make a head of a sort of ogre creature, so we're talking the face here, ears and horns up here, and the back of the head. And all I'm looking for, as I keep saying, is just some clean geometry. Down the back here we're going to add something that will be part of the neck. So again, it's just building up geometry to work with. As you can see, that's it's getting sort of like a reasonable shape. If we come out of edit mode by hitting T and then E, you can scale that down. This is the gyro. With the gyro, with keyboard W you can move it. Keyboard E you can scale. Keyboard R you've got to rotate. When you're in edit mode, which is keyboard T or this button up here, you can drag around freely from outside the object. If you want to move it around in this mode, you hold down the Alt button and that gives you the option, or you can use these buttons down here. So that's pretty much where we want to be with the geometry. There's some errors down here which we can probably quickly fix by just adding in. What we just hit there was minimal skin to parent, so we tightened up that bit there. We've lost it a little bit flat on the top there, but I'll amend that in the next stage. That's pretty much where we need to be for the geometry for the time being. So what we're going to do now is we're going to actually make that into a polygon mesh. So we'll go back to ZSpheres, hit Make Adaptive Skin, and you'll see here that's the ZSphere tool, and that's now the new polygon mesh tool. So we're going to stop using this one and start using this one. So we've selected the new one, and ZBrush has asked, do we want to switch, which we do. But that then drops this one to canvas. Now this is one thing that people do get very confused with in ZBrush. Once an object has dropped to canvas, it becomes not a 3D object anymore. It's part of the canvas, and it is made up of pixels. So they are pixels with depth and the ability to retain colour and shading. So I can give you an example of that. So you can now actually paint directly across that with a stroke straight through the canvas and up over the model, and you can see that's affecting it as if it were clay and we were running our fingers through it. We still have the ZSphere model here, and we still have the polygon model here, and we can call them back up, but in terms of what's here in the document window, we've got a very different setup now. It's become a different thing altogether. So we'll clear that with Control and N, and we'll bring our polygon mesh out here. Keyboard T to edit mode. We've actually got it set up in polyframe here of 100, and that gives us a nice crisp lines. If we were down lower, around 44 or even down lower than that, you can see the lines go very thin. Always keep it up around there so you can see quite defined lines. And we are actually in quick frame mode. Take that off and we go back to a standard view of the model. Very, very low res at this stage. We're talking 162 polygons at this very early stage. So go back into polyframe. Now we can edit those this mesh actually point by point. If we go back to transform and give us our symmetry back across X, got a draw size of 1 and go into move, we can now move this mesh around as if we were in a more traditional program with point editing tools. So this is something that a lot of people don't know about ZBrush, that you can actually treat it as a point by point modeler. The Z scripts do a good job of explaining this, but it's still not a very well known fact. As you can see now, we're just building up some sort of shape, editing it to where we need it to be. That's one way of doing it. Another way would be to use draw, give it a higher draw size and quite a low intensity. That's about 5 there. If 5 is a little too low, we'll take that up to about 12. And you'll see now, as we paint, and I'm literally just moving my tablet pen around wherever I want to increase the volume. It's not adding any more polygons, it's not dividing the mesh in any way. What it's actually doing is just moving the faces and the edges and the points around based on my brush strokes or my tablet strokes. So I'm building up some mesh here at the front for where the face is going to be, and we're going to divide the mesh in a moment, so we will be getting a lot more polygon depth in here. Let's use the move key again, but we won't go back to 1. We'll use the move key with a higher brush size, and as you can see, that now moves large chunks as if it were a magnet or some kind of influence fall off. And here we're just moving everything around to get some sort of definition in the model. Something you can do at this point is you can start, if we look over here into our geometry, you can start adding edge loops. You can see the key here. Now to do that, I'll just show you a tip. All of these polygroups, the different coloured groups, can be hidden, and you simply do that by, I'll just make that draw size smaller so you can see what we're doing. If you use Shift and Control and click on any of the polygroups, they're hidden or revealed. So I'm just simply clicking on the ones that I want to see, and it's hiding and revealing. To reveal, I'm doing the same thing but holding Shift and Control and clicking away from the model. Now if we were to if we were just to select this here, and we can do that by going fully on this axis here and selecting across the purple areas. That didn't work, so we will just select all of it. Didn't work again, so we're not getting everything we want there. So there you go, I clicked it in the middle and that's kept all of that polygroup. Now what we want to do there is we want to subdivide all of this once so we get more polygons around the facial area. So I'm going to edge loop the whole thing. First of all, I've got to delete the lower level of geometry and then edge loop, and that's given me more geometry around there. I'm going to hide, I'm going to bring that back. That's just given me a ring round there, which isn't too bad, but it's nowhere near what I wanted, so I'm going to go back and keep this area here, and I'm going to add an edge loop again. We'll go to draw size 1 and move, and we can do some minor editing around here. We're not looking for anything other than an amount of geometry that will let us detail the mesh in the way that we want. So you're looking to block out basic shapes and add geometry at this early stage where it's going to be needed. We're going to be putting eyes in here around here, this sort of area, so you want more geometry around this area here. So what we can do is we can, let's just hide all of that. Hide all of, oops, didn't mean to do that. Hide all of that first of all. Didn't work again. So we've hidden all of that. We now want to, I just want to keep this one and this one. So green in the middle, but if we release the shift first it goes red, and that takes out the middle completely. Again with the purple area, take that out. Purple area, take that out. Still got the ones that we want. Let's take those out and that out, and the last two. Oops. Take that one out and that one. That leaves us 2 polygons there. And what I'm going to do there is I'm going to edge loop both of those like so, and that's given us a nice edge loop that will become the eye area. As you can see, it's given us that. As we divide the mesh, obviously it will give us more and more to work with at that point. This area here needs to give me more of a defined chin area, and I could work at this all day, getting it to where we need it to be, but for the purposes of this video we'll probably leave it at that. So that's given us a little bit. I'll just move the head up. A lot bigger draw size here, and we'll bring this face down a little bit. I'm actually working off an idea of what I want. I've got an idea in my head of how I want this head to be, so it's very difficult for you to understand what I'm thinking at this stage, but I'm trying to show you as I go along where we're aiming for. So you've got a facial area here, eyes, a nasal area, the horns or ears as we started, and the neck area down here. Okay, so let's go into some higher detail now. We can start adding some of the detail when we've subdivided the mesh a little bit more. So we'll go straight into divide, and as you can see, straight away we've rounded, we've subdivided once. We've ended up with 744 polygons, so we've gone a lot denser. And obviously where we started to put geometry here around edge loops, it's given us a lot more to play with, so we can just do a bit more moving around now, because now we've got more to play with. It helps us define these areas. And again, what I always try to do with ZBrush is do as much as you can at the lower levels, which helps your geometry deform well when you get up into the millions of polygons. I suppose it's a basic of 3D modeling, really, to do as much with the lower and the lower res, and get the topology right and the edge loops right early on. Helps you with your meshes as you get into the later stages. Just makes everything cleaner, more efficient. So you can see that where I'm going with this now, giving you more of an idea, and you're starting to see more recognizable, perhaps, chunks of polygons really on mesh. I'm going to go back here. I'm going to go back to draw. I'm going to hide everything around there. Just keep that. Just make sure you've got nothing at the back, like I just checked then. So you don't want to be subdividing stuff that you don't realise. Take that area there, and we're going to edge loop it. Won't let me at the moment because I've got a lower level of geometry, so I'm going to delete the lower and then edge loop, and then we'll have a look at that, and it's given us our mouth area. Draw size down, and go back to move, and we've got ourselves a mouth area. Anyone familiar with more traditional 3D packages, Maya and Lightwave and 3ds Max, this is very, very alien at the early stages. When you get into understanding more about how ZBrush was designed and what its tools were for, it just becomes second nature, and you forget all the point-by-point or box modeling methods. All good grounding, obviously, for good topology, but it's done in a very, very different way with ZBrush, as you can see from what I'm doing here today. Just still moving these around, just generally trying to get a feel for the shape now. Now we've got more polygons to work with. Okay, nearly happy with this now. Nearly at the stage where we can go up another level of detail and move on to the next stage in the modeling. So happy with that. We'll go up one more with Divine. You can see now we're getting into quite high polygon definition, and if we go just check here, we're now up to, it's still only 3,000 polygons, but when you remember we started with just over 100. It's obviously changed dramatically. We can still use all the features that we were using, as in the move, but you can see now, because we've got more geometry, underlying geometry to play with here, it's becoming a lot easier. And what we're going to do is just start defining some of the muscles on this guy's face. So I'm going to divide one more time. I'm going to switch off the frame, and I'm going to switch off quick edit. Keep that draw size low while I do this, and I'm going to go into display properties here, and I'm going to knock the draw smoothness from 0 up to 1. You can see straight away the difference of how smooth out that is now. It's a subdivided model now, and it's got the shape that I'm looking for here quite nicely. So what we're going to do now is we're going to start drawing some painting, should I say, some features on this guy. First of all, we'll just keep the draw size fairly small, but we'll keep the focal shift high. And what focal shift does, quite a lot of information about it there. It gives you either a defined, if I was to paint here now, you can see that's with the setting I've got now, and with the focal shift set very, well, it's actually minus 100 low, it actually gives you a lower, flatter curve. You'll see it a lot more when I have a lot more polygons in there. It matters a lot when you're detailing. At this stage, just not showing as much, so it's difficult to explain to you and show you at this stage. So we'll go back to the focal setting that we had, and we'll just knock the Z intensity up a little bit. We'll go to 16, and what we're going to do now is just start adding in some of the features of this creature's head. I've got a nice ring around here of the jawline because of the way we did the geometry. You can still see when I'm pressing here some of the pixel, well, the polygon details there. It's actually, as I click and then release, you see it for a few seconds, or for a split second. So we'll start building up around here. And later on I'm going to throw a couple of teeth in here, I think, so I won't do too much. It's working out quite nicely around that jawline. I'm just literally stroking with my palette and adding layers of detail and thinking about the muscles. Obviously this is some sort of fantasy creature, so it isn't real, but the more you can relate it to realistic anatomy, the more realistic and the more believable your creature is going to be. We'll just increase that draw size here around the back and just add some volume that we didn't have there at the back. And that's just building up nicely all the way along. We'll build the back of the neck up, draw size back down. And you can see here we're building up quite a nicely defined neck there, neck area. Keep building up and building up. We're going to go higher again in a second, another resolution higher in a second, but try and do, as I keep saying, as much as you can on each of the levels of geometry. Build up the cheekbones. I'm going to put a nose up here. Actually, it's going to look very weird, but that's where his nose is going. I'm not having a traditional nose. Okay, so happy with that level. I'm going to go up another one now, so divide. So you can have a look now. We're now at 48,000 polygons. If we were to go back quickly and have a look at the quick edit and the frame, you can see we're getting into extreme detail now. But you can see where those edge loops came in use, and you can see there's extreme amounts of dense polygons in those areas. So you can understand now why it's flowing better and why we did it. Okay, back out. Now we're going to go into, I'm actually going to do one more divide. I'll probably work at that level, but for the purposes of this video we'll leave it at that. It's now at 192,000. We probably will only divide this once more, so it's nearly at 200,000 polygons now. I'm probably going to finish it at around 800,000 because I'm not looking for a super high detail model. So at this stage now we'll knock the focal shift down to about minus 90. And we'll go in and you can see there straight away, I did too much then, you can see straight away how different that brush looks with the focal setting. What I'll actually do is I'm just going to mask it for a second. I'm going to hide everything but the eyes, as you can see there. Come out of edit mode, and I want to scale that up, and you can see now we're just working on it. Makes, by hiding, you make it a lot easier on ZBrush. It gives it less polygons to work on. And now we're just going to start building up around the eye, some definition of an eyebrow up to a forehead, and bring that eyelid, that lower eyelid there. Straight away, just with those few strokes, that muscle definition around the eye ring has changed the look of the model really. We can't have done more than 7 or 8 strokes there, and straight away that's given us a different look in the creature. Because we've got plenty of polygons to work with, it's looking good already. Quite pleased with those few bits. One thing you can do if you make a mistake there, obviously you've got Control Z to go back one. If you hold down the Shift key on its own, you get a blue cursor. That's actually a smooth brush, and if you can just see there, I'm actually smoothing out that area of the mesh. So if you do make a mess, so here, you just go back and you smooth that back down. That eye would be very, very smooth in terms of the eyeball, and we smooth that back down. Now we're going to put a nose up here. One thing I haven't shown you yet, is you can actually indent with the same brush. You've got a positive painting brush and a negative, and all you have to do there is hold down the Alt, and that will indent nicely like that. I'm going to increase that focal shift and do that again, and then I'm going to paint around the edges to bring that nasal area up, and then back in to indent more, and we'll bring this a bit of an indent there, and we'll bring the indent right the way down. Okay, so let's just go out of this mode and back down to scale, into edit mode again, keyboard T, and we'll reveal our model just to make sure we're looking how we want, which we are. So that's a good example of the different brushes and the brush tools. What I've been using so far, if you look up here in the transform panel, I've been using just a standard brush. You've got standard dot, inflate, inflate dot, layer, pinch, nudge and smooth, which are a lot of different brushes for doing what we're doing but in different ways. Now I'm going to change from standard to inflate, and then what that will do will give me a different set of a different look to my brush strokes. I'm just going to go back in the focal length a little bit, and we'll hide everything but the front of the face, and we'll hide the top of the head there as well. And we'll do some work around here on the front. So we're going to knock that down to around 11 or 12, and just start adding more muscles. That focal shift now really does need to be down at the lower levels, minus 90s and minus 100s. And let's bring more muscle definition down here, which would be the muscles under our nose if it were a more humanoid character, and then around to what would be a lip, and then that would be a chin area down here, and we'll keep this built up here nicely. Reduce the draw size again slightly, and indent again, holding down, and we'll just indent around there and up back into the nose, and a little bit of an indent in the centre there, and around the sides. Okay, so what I'm going to do is put some teeth along here, so I'm going to reveal all again, and then we'll just hide everything but the bottom, oops, wrong way, Well, there we go, hide everything but the bottom jaw. Let's move that into the middle. Just did a wrong stroke there. And then with the focal shift back up to a middle sort of setting, we'll just add in some teeth along here. Now all I'm doing now is just stroking round and round. A little bit of an error there, so I'm going to go back in with the smooth brush. And I probably won't do any more with that until we go up to the higher resolution. So that's 42,000 there. Obviously that's only the visible polygons. When I go up to the 200,000, then we'll work on those teeth a bit more. But we've got them there in situ. Let's move that back down. I want to do more work with those horns, so I'm going to move them around a little bit. Good thing about ZBrush, you can just edit the whole thing at later stages. You can actually go back down your resolution. With a lot of what I've done today, I've deleted my lower resolutions. What you can do is scale up and down the resolutions. So for example, you go from 200,000 back down to 30 or 40, sorry, 300 or 400 polygons, and you can then move chunks of the model around. I'm just doing it at the higher resolution here for speed. Let's pull this back a little bit. Okay, and we're going to put some detail on here now before we move on to the next level. So let's just bring the head round. When you see me snapping the model like this, what I'm doing there is I'm holding down the shift key as I'm spinning, and it brings it onto one of the axes, either X, Y or Z. I'll just hide everything but the top of the head, and then focal shift back down, draw size down, go to draw, and let's do some work along these horns here. Just build those back up, give them some nice texture. And what I think I'll do is I'll make it so that he's got a raised horn area here that goes into his head from here. So that's giving it an interesting texture straight away in that centre, as you can see. And we'll bring that down and around like so. And that's almost as if he's got some kind of a horny area on his head. And we'll bring it the side. Notice, because we're using the inflate tool, it's bringing the edges round and giving us some nice creases. It's giving us some really weird effects on the top there. We'll knock our intensity back down for what we're going to do next, and just crease around these edges here a little bit, and then put some detail across the back of the head and underneath that area that we've just done. I was going to use this area here as sort of an ear type area. I was going to use those horns as the ears originally, but I've changed my mind as we've gone along. And what we've managed to do there is make ourselves a little area that I can use specifically for the ear, which has worked out quite nicely. Just squeeze that in. We'll do some more work on that in a minute. Just smooth out that. Just smooth out that horn area slightly. Just bring it all back. We've done a little bit over the top with that horn area. I think it messed it up slightly, so just smooth it back a little bit. Okay, so it's time for our guy to go back up to another resolution. So we're going to go to divide and divide him up again. He is now, when he's divided, he's now actually 700 and, where are we now, 770. So not far off getting up towards the million polygon mark now. And we are going to have to we're going to have to start using the hide more now, because the detail we can get now is fantastic. We can really go in and add some detail. A couple of tools I haven't shown you yet make a big difference in modelling at this stage. If you snap it directly at that axis there, so it is clearly on a, exactly on a, the x-axis like so, and then you use projection master here, this drops it to canvas and we can add lots of information on here. So we're going to use deformation, we're going to have double-sided, and we're going to drop it to canvas. That's now flat on the canvas. And we can use all sorts of 2D brushes and alpha brushes, which I haven't shown you from this side here, alpha. We've got all these different alpha brushes here, and I'm going to use just one of these, and I'm going to add, I'll shut this side down for a moment. When I add like so, when I pick the model back up, it picks up this work that I've done here. It's double-sided, so it's going to be reflected on the other side of the geometry, and it works out extremely well in terms of an effect. Just keep varying your sizes. Different alpha brushes give different effects. You can even go in and rotate the alpha brushes so you're not repeating your patterns. You can hold down the Alt key and you can indent rather than building up, and then change the alpha brush again. Have a look at some of these patterns. These are some scaly patterns. We've got there's all sorts. Obviously these are just the standard alpha brushes. You can generate your own right here in ZBrush, and just basically make anything, any black and white image, any image whatsoever can become an alpha brush. To pick it back up, we'll use keyboard G, pick it up, and it pick all that detail up with it. As you'll see in a second, just calculates. When the little Z finishes, you'll see that all that detail is now picked up and on the mesh on both sides. Very, very good way of getting detail into your models. We'll do that with the horn now, actually. So let's just bring that model forward like so, bring it to the center. We're going to use projection master. You don't need double-sided now. Leave these two checked and drop it. And let's see what this looks like. Needs more intensity there, 15. And we're giving a really mottled feel to the top of the horns there. And perhaps go back in and get a different brush. And just give it some sort of effect. And I wouldn't mind just giving the back of the head some texture there. Pick it up with keyboard G. It takes a moment just to pick it up and calculate all those details, as you can see. Now what we're probably better doing is just go to the front here, projection master again, drop him again, make sure he's not double-sided because we're just doing work at the front. There he is, dropped, and detail more at the front. There are hundreds of different combinations of things you can use here. Really is mind-boggling the effects you can get. You're limited only by your imagination. if you can think of how to generate textures, just bring them in and use them. Pick it up again, and you can see he's looking quite textured up there, quite knobbly and alien-like. So we're going to move these teeth along now. So I think we'll use the hide command again, and we're going to use the move tool. And just drag these teeth up and down, up at the top, down at the base, up at the top, down at the base. Gives you a very defined jawline there. As you can see, I'll just pull him across there. We're just working on getting a basic tooth shape, but having it sunk into the jaw really adds effect. So I'll go back to draw, focal shift, and we'll build up some area around like so. Builds up that chin area. This is going to be quite a rough area of skin underneath here. Maybe take that intensity a bit higher and the draw size right down here, and we'll put some draw size a bit higher for what we need. Put some creases in here. Don't worry if they're not quite smoothed out for you, because you can just go in and use this smooth brush as you've done in other areas. Smooth out anything you weren't quite happy with, like so. Oops. And then I'm just going to use the inflate tool. I'm obviously using inflate now with the focal shift set at just about 1 and the intensity quite low. If we just stroke over these areas, it inflates the whole area. It's only very subtle. It sort of fills in a lot of the cracks of what we're doing here. Okay, so you can see our guy's teeth. Okay, so I think you can see we could do a lot more with this model, but with this short video, that's probably about as much of the modelling as I'm going to be able to get to, showing you some of the basic tools. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a lighting setup and I'm going to render this. I'm going to add a texture to it first, then I'm going to render it in a moment.